Welcome back, everybody. We're going to share the screen and we're going to jump right in. 10 tips for running a great meeting. And before we get started, click the thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and click the alert button before we get going. I appreciate it. And then also I'll put a link in the description below so that you can click to the playlist after this video is done and get to the other 10 items that I provided in other videos. And then there'll also be a placard that pops up at the end of this meeting that you can also click, the end of this video that you can also click on to get to the other 4 videos that will be part of this playlist to get to help you run a great meeting. If you're not running a great meeting, take a listen to all these items that I'm sharing with you. It'll help you greatly. So we're jumping to number 4 here. This is important because, again, it's not just your time, it's everybody's time. As Spicoli and Fast Times at Ridgemont High says, it's our time, and it is our time. So we need to be respectful of it. So stay within the meeting time limit. Number 4, stay within the meeting time limit. If you find yourself running up against the end of time, a couple of things you need to do. If it's a half an hour meeting, you need to extend it to an hour. If you're consistently doing setting up meetings, you're running over the timeline. So here's the thing also, just a little tip for you. If you're at the beginning of a project, typically your meetings are going to run a little bit longer, right? So I always schedule mine in the beginning of the meetings, especially if they're recurring meetings, at that hour limit, right? And typically there's enough content for you to cover. If it's just a quick one-off and you're mid to late project and it's not at go live time, typically you're going to be able to get away with half-hour meetings or ad hoc meetings. But in the beginning, it's better to schedule them and then give people time back, right? So at the beginning, if you schedule it for an hour and then you get 3-4 weeks in, you're done with all the heavy lifting at the beginning, you can always change the recurrence time on that to a half an hour, and you can ask everybody in the meeting if they feel comfortable with that. So if you have the representation from the different stakeholders, they'll let you know if they feel comfortable or not. And most people, if you're letting them go at that 25-30 minute mark anyway, I think it just makes sense. Now, I always, when I have this conversation with the teams, I always say, hey, if we get to a heavy lifting part again, at midpoint or at the end of the project, I might bump this back up to an hour. But for right now, we'll cut it back to half an hour and give you some time back. So just stay in communication with the teams, but you've got to stay within that meeting time limit. And then again, if you don't get to all of your topics because one topic dominated, and that happens sometimes, right? Make sure you take note of it and that you make sure you bring all of those agenda items that weren't covered forward to the next meeting. And if you need to split them out or because there's other topics that are going to be added to the next meeting, extend the next meeting for an hour so you can cover everything. So you've just got to be a little bit fluid in terms of scheduling your meetings. Make sure that if there's items that don't finish getting covered, it's okay sometimes to go a little bit over, but if it's going to go over half an hour, just say, hey, does it make sense for me to schedule another meeting later on this afternoon or first thing in the morning because this is important? Go with the flow, but sometimes they'll say, no, we can cover it next week or I'll take it offline. But always respect people's time. And then it's also helpful if you're running and facilitating a meeting to just give people a heads up to say, hey, we have 10 minutes left. Want to make sure everyone's aware of this because we also have this other item that we need to cover. So that'll help move people along, but you have got to feel confident to speak up as a courtesy to let people know that we're running out of time or where we are within the meeting, and you need to facilitate making sure we stay within the time limit. Number 3, here's another thing that's really going to help you be a better meeting facilitator and run a great meeting. Only invite people that are needed. The meetings that typically tend to get derailed and run long and you never get anything done are the meetings that have everybody and their mother and their dog walker's aunt in the meeting that doesn't need to be there, right? Sometimes in the beginning of projects or, teams being established, it's important to invite more people than not. But typically as time goes on, I will typically only invite the key stakeholders and let them delegate down to their folks, right? I don't invite them. And then if they need to have somebody in, attend the meeting, and after I've removed and pared the meeting attendee list down, they can always forward that instance of the meeting to them, right? But you need to make sure that you have the appropriate people there. Otherwise, I guarantee you're going to run out of time. Don't feel insecure about having fewer people. And here's another reason that I think people invite everybody is because they don't feel comfortable either facilitating the meeting or they might get asked a question that they don't know about. That shouldn't be the case. You've got to feel comfortable talking to your key stakeholders. only inviting them and letting them delegate and forward the meeting to people that they want to attend on their behalf. Shouldn't be inviting, again, 10, 12, 15, those meetings are never productive at the end of the day when you have 10, 12, 15 people and it's only a half an hour meeting, right? And it's one thing if it's a status meeting, it's another thing if it's a working session that, is really going to focus in on one area, but use your judgment in terms of how many people are attending your meetings. Guarantee if you start paying attention to that one also, that will really help you impact number 4 in terms of staying within your time limit as well. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, click the alert button. I will post a link to the playlist for you to click on to get to the other videos that we're covering in the series. Hopefully this is helpful. And if you know somebody else that needs to hear it, maybe it's better for them to hear it from me, and you should feel free to share this series with those people, or just share it with your team so that if there's one person that's not doing a great job, you're not necessarily calling them out, right? You can send it to the team. Maybe the people already know how to do these things, but maybe not. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you at the next series.